All right, Friday morning, Chase Sr. in the house. We're talking Niners. We're brought to you by Claudaddy Arcades. That's right, Claudaddy Arcades, one of our sponsors today. Also, Learn Keys Upskill Academy. Thanks to them for sponsoring. We're going to talk a little Niners right now. Let's go. Thanks for joining us. Friday, welcome to the Krug Show. Chase Sr.'s in the house and his regular spot. We're a few minutes behind. It wouldn't be the Krug Show if we weren't a couple minutes behind. Welcome. We're brought to you by Pig and a Pickle, the best barbecue in all of Northern California. Check them out. They're in Emeryville. They're in Corte Madera. They're open 7 days a week from 11 a.m. till 8 p.m. Go say hi to Damon and Mary. Get some brisket chili. Tell them I sent you. Also, thanks to Claudaddy Arcades. They're a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. They got an arcade coming to the Bay Area. You should check them out on Instagram. And also, this show is sponsored by Learn Keys Upskill Academy. They're an online learning platform designed to get you job ready in 6 months or less. And it doesn't matter what field you're interested in. Could be IT, could be cybersecurity, marketing, could be another high-demand field. They offer over 30 certification programs to help you take that next step in your professional career. 37 years in business, over 200,000 students. They place over about 100 students per month in highly paid jobs. So check that out. The links are in the description for all of our sponsors, and thanks to all of them for being proud sponsors of the Krug Show. All right, Chase Sr. is in the house. And Chase, always good to talk to you. And you know, one of the stories of the day is all this talk surrounding Brock Purdy and Brock Purdy's contract. There's a lot of people weighing in. Mike Florio was the latest, and we'll share the screen and we'll let people hear what Florio had to say with Michael Holley. Holley's covers the Patriots out of New England. And here they are talking about Mac Jones and Brock Purdy. Here we go.
Mac Jones has to be thrilled more than anything else because Robert Saleh is not the offensive coordinator of the San Francisco 49ers. He lived through that.
That's right.
After Josh McDaniels left to be the coach of the Raiders, Matt Patricia took over the offense, and just as foolishly and just as tragically for the Patriots that year, Joe Judge was in charge of the quarterbacks. Look, Mac Jones, I've heard enough about Mac Jones over the years, and I've seen enough from Mac Jones. He is not going to show up and bow down to Brock Purdy. He's going to go in there with the mindset of, I can win this job. I was the 15th pick in the draft in 22. This guy was the last guy taken in 23. This guy, right place at the right time, running Kyle Shanahan's offense. That's all you have to do. You listen to Kyle. You do what Kyle wants, and you're going to play well. And, Jimmy Garoppolo had limitations. Trey Lance never really worked out. Brock Purdy was the guy who kind of just slipped in the back door at a time when they were trying to figure out what the hell they were going to do with Trey Lance. I can do this. I can be that good. I can be better. That's going to be Mac Jones' attitude. He's going to go in there, regardless of whether or not it works.
Yeah.
But he's going in there not with the idea that I support Brock Purdy. No, I'm trying to beat Brock Purdy out, and I want to give the 49ers something to think about. And that's another reason for them to not show up with $60 million per year in new money average for Brock Purdy to get his deal done. Let's see what we got in Mac Jones before we do a long-term commitment with Brock Purdy.
Let me see if I can say it this way without calling anybody out in particular. But those who know will know. I remember I used to do talk radio. I did sports talk radio for 13 years in Boston. So we had a partner. It was great. And that partner moved on. I had to break in another partner. And there are certain people who, when they're not on the air and you talk to them, you really like them. They really make a lot of sense. But then when the red light comes on, you think, oh my God, this is awful. I like this person, but I don't like being on the air with this person. And so I think that's what Kyle Shanahan is going to find with Mac Jones. Mac Jones, if you talk football with Mac Jones, you love it. He understands, even before he was drafted. I don't know if you remember this, Mike, when that speculation that you mentioned earlier about Kyle Shanahan they have the 3rd pick in the draft. Well, they draft Mac Jones. And Mac Jones is asked about it, and he gives this great, eloquent breakdown of the San Francisco offense. This is before he was even drafted. It was very impressive. So he is an impressive football mind when he's talking, but when he plays, it's not pretty. He just does things that are just head-scratching, and he will drive Kyle Shanahan crazy. He will make him crazy. So he's not going to beat out Brock Purdy. If he does beat out Brock Purdy, it's going to be for a game or two, and then Purdy will go right back in there and take the job back because he's just not capable of – I don't think he's capable of maintaining it at a starter's level. He's a cameo guy, but I don't think he's a starter anymore.
Interesting. What do you think, Chase, as far as I haven't talked to you about Mac Jones. What do you think of the Mac Jones addition? Do you look at it as a guy who potentially can be a starter? Is it a leverage play against the Purdy contract? Do you think Purdy and Jones coexist peacefully? How do you see the whole addition of Mac Jones?
So much to take away from what they just discussed. And Mike Florio actually got it wrong. Mac Jones was taken in 2021. That was the same draft class as Trey Lance. And then Brock Purdy was taken that following year in the 2022 NFL draft when he famously was made Mr. Irrelevant. And imagine where the Niners would be if it weren't for San Francisco taking Purdy with the final pick of that draft when Brian Greasy, who's no longer with this coaching staff, was pounding the table saying, I think we should take this guy. And it's really helped to save this Niners organization, which brings us now to present day, because Purdy since then, in taking over for Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance as a rookie, what he did in 2023 when he was tremendous, so efficient to a historic level, helped lead this team to a Super Bowl, was top 5 in MVP voting. And then last year, it was a little bit rocky, but the entire season for San Francisco is rocky. He is now at a point where he's been a great bargain deal. He's made less than $1 million every single season that he's been in the NFL, set to make $5 million in the final year of his rookie contract. And he's looking for this new deal, which is one of the biggest storylines in recent memory for the Niners, considering the importance of the position, and one of the biggest storylines across the NFL, which is why somebody with a national platform like Mike Florio is talking about it. As far as Mac Jones goes, I like the Niners bringing in Mac Jones. It puts a little bit of pressure on Purdy coming off a down year. It gives them quarterback insurance because Purdy has been injured in his own right to start his career with the elbow surgery and the shoulder injury last year. Coming off of 2024, you're a little bit uneasy if you're thinking about giving Purdy $50 to $60 million, because you know if he occupies 20 to 25% of the salary cap, that's a lot. And Purdy is proven to be a quarterback who I think needs good players around him. You also don't have a backup quarterback for Purdy. Brandon Allen, not good enough to be in this league. Josh Dobbs, the Niners messed up that situation. He goes to the New England Patriots to back up Drake May. And so I think that Mac Jones is a high-level backup who Kyle Shanahan really likes. He fell in love with him in the pre-draft process. He has not had an ideal start to his career as far as having a foundational base beneath him, as far as having organizational and offensive stability. He has never had good skill level talent around him. The offensive coaching has never been good enough. Matt Patricia was his offensive coordinator, as Mike Florio said, and the one good year that Mac Jones had, he was a Pro Bowler, and he was one of the top rookies among all rookies in that draft class. Since then, he has not played well, but Mac Jones is a player who has some fire. He's very competitive. And because of that, he rubs some people the wrong way. I think that's a good influence on Purdy. And I think that Mac Jones looks at coming to the Niners as an opportunity to really resurrect his career and get back on track the way that Sam Darnold did. But he looks at this Niners situation saying, look at what Kyle Shanahan did with Nick Mullins. Look at what Kyle Shanahan did with C.J. Beathard. Look at what Kyle Shanahan's been able to do with Brock Purdy. And I know that some people will mock Mac Jones, but he is a smart and heady football player. Nick Saban has talked about that. Bill Belichick took him in the first round, midway through that first round. Kyle Shanahan really liked him. I think it's pretty telling that a lot of upper echelon, top tier football minds like him a lot. And when he was at Alabama, I know that team was loaded in 2020. He threw 41 touchdowns and 4 picks that year and led college football in a lot of different categories. So do I think that Mac Jones is being brought to San Francisco to compete with Brock Purdy to be the team's starting quarterback? No, but it's always good to bring competition in that room because competition brings the best out of everybody. Brock Purdy, Larry, said himself in front of you and others, I need to get back to playing with that chip on my shoulder. I didn't do that in 2024. And so he has a lot to prove. Mac Jones can help him do that. It's good quarterback insurance. And I'm always a fan of bringing in a backup who has pedigree, who has some potential in a good situation on a 2-year deal to potentially see what he can become down the road.
I like it for a lot of the same reasons. I do think Brock Purdy has to continue to be challenged. I mean, they didn't challenge him last year. They just basically said, you're the quarterback. Here are these 2 other backups, but they're true backups. Nobody, the year before, at least there was Sam Darnold there. The year before that, you had Jimmy Garoppolo, you had Trey Lance, you had guys to compete with Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy's a great competitor. To me, if there's one trait that stands out above all other traits when it comes to him, it's just that he is a competitor. And you're doing him a disservice if you don't put a competitive situation together. I like the idea of Mac Jones being there because I like the idea of somebody there who could actually do the job at a higher level than Brandon Allen and Josh Dobbs. Somebody there who could actually potentially win some games if Brock Purdy was gone for a month or two. And I just think that you're going to get, if you want the best out of anybody and you're not getting it, bring in competition. I don't care what business you're talking about. Heck, Steve Young hated Joe Montana. Joe Montana hated Steve Young. They actually got along, but they hated that they had to deal with one another. It made them both better. Joe had a whole nother chapter to his career. Steve Young became this Hall of Famer, MVP of the league because of the presence of the other guy, because you had to either perform or you weren't going to be playing. And I think the Niners need to get that back to that with Brock Purdy. Get somebody else in the room that can do the job. And so I love the idea of Mac Jones. And I agree that Mac Jones isn't going to come there to be the backup, that he's going to compete and want to play. And I think that's good. Iron sharpens iron. I really believe in that. What do you think of the other story this morning? There was another one going around from Mike Garafolo saying that, it sounds like Mike Garafolo has talked to Kyle Strongen. That's what it sounds like to me.
That's
it sounds
exactly
like
what my takeaway was.
Yeah, that because I've talked to Kyle and he's maintaining that Brock deserves top of the market type money, and I understand why he's saying that. I don't think the 49ers can just say, you know what, we don't like the market, so we're going to pretend it doesn't exist. I don't think that game plan is going to work. So Garafolo is like, hey, I don't think this Purdy deal is getting done unless the Niners can agree on a number that's pretty damn close to what Dak Prescott's getting. And it sounds like the 49ers want to get quite a bit beneath that, and they're talking about we're going to be ruthless in these negotiations. Well, you can ruthless your way right out of any kind of chance to compete this year. I mean, I think there's a hard deadline on this thing, and I think it's the mini camp after the draft, which is going to be here in the blink of an eye. That May mini camp, if he's not there for the May mini camp, I think you're going forward at a major disadvantage, and the Niners are going to be challenged enough this year because of all the turnover and all the youth on their roster. They're literally shooting themselves and their chances of having any success this year in the foot if they can't get this thing done by that mini camp in May. How do you see the timeline of the negotiations?
Well, the worst place that you can be in the NFL is in quarterback purgatory, and it's so important for San Francisco, I think, to get this Brock Purdy deal done so that you have a clear vision for 2025. And we saw in 2024 how these types of contract negotiations negatively impacted the 49ers. It started with Christian McCaffrey, then it translated to Brandon Aiyuk, and then it went to Trent Williams. And there was a weird vibe around this team throughout training camp, throughout the preseason, and then from the start of the season until the end of it, this is an offense that never found a rhythm. This is an offense that never found an identity. This is an entire team that never found a groove. And I know Kyle Juszczyk laughed about it prior to the year. There's been all this talk about weird vibes around our team. We don't sense that at all. Well, then we saw the season transpire, and that's exactly what happened. And if you don't get this deal done with Brock Purdy and he misses out of mandatory minicamp and he doesn't attend training camp, and then in the preseason and in training camp, you're stuck with Mac Jones and Tanner Mordecai as your 1-2 punch at quarterback, I think that's a problem. This team is clearly at its best with Brock Purdy, and we've seen that when this team is healthy, we've seen that when this team coaches up to their level, we've seen when this team plays up to their level. And I know a lot of players have left. This is one of the top teams in the NFL, and they still have a lot of talent going into 2025. Brock Purdy, Christian McCaffrey, George Kittle, Brandon Aiyuk, Nick Bosa, Fred Warner, Diamador Lenore, Malik Mustafa, I think, is a rising stud. And so there's pressure on the Niners to get this deal done. They have a little bit of leverage here because they can say, look, we're going to give you this number. If you don't want to accept it, then we'll put the franchise tag on you after 2025. Brock Purdy can say, I'm holding out. Now, I don't think that Brock Purdy gains a lot from that because I think Purdy will want to show his value. And if he plays well in 2025 with lesser parts on offense, then he has the possibility and the potential to really earn more money. But here's the other issue that the Niners are in, right? They're saying, we're going to be ruthless in these negotiations. Well, you tried that with Brandon Aiyuk. You got pantsed. You tried that with Nick Bosa. You folded and gave him $34 million. You tried that with Deebo Samuel, and you paid him. And with where the quarterback market is right now, the going rate for a good to really good quarterback is $50+ million per year. So while it's best for the Niners to sign Brock Purdy to $45 million per year so that you can spread that money elsewhere to improve your football team, I don't think it's realistic. And I don't think that Brock Purdy's ever going to take that number because when you think about the top 10 highest paid quarterbacks per year, Dak Prescott at $60 million. I'd rather take Brock Purdy. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Obviously, I'd rather take those two quarterbacks. But who would you rather have, Brock Purdy or Jordan Love? Well, Jordan Love's making $55 million. Who would you rather have, Brock Purdy or Trevor Lawrence? Trevor Lawrence is making $55 million. Tua Tagovailoa or Brock Purdy? Brock Purdy, it's not even close. Tua is making 53. Jared Goff. Brock Purdy, he might be better than Jared Goff. He's certainly more mobile. Jared Goff doesn't have a bazooka for an arm. How's he going to play without Ben Johnson? Well, he's making 53. Justin Herbert has never won a playoff game. He's at 52.5. Lamar Jackson at 52. Jalen Hurts at 51. Kyler Murray's at 46. Already, I'd rather have Brock Purdy than Kyler Murray. And so the starting point, I think, is about $50 million. But then Purdy and Kyle Strongton can say, well, look at what those aforementioned quarterbacks are making. Goff, Tua, Lawrence, Love, Dak, and Purdy's beaten a lot of them head-to-head in the playoffs.
Right. So, I mean, and then you're looking at it from the Niner perspective. Let's go through their options. Their options are they can do nothing, never call Kyle Strongton back and say, Brock, you're going to play this year at $5.2 million, and then go that franchise route next year and then and a next year after that. So technically, they don't have to do anything. They could let the thing just kind of ride.
Yeah.
Then they could come to some kind of an agreement on a contract, or they can go in a different direction, right? I mean, Craig Carton proposed the idea, and of course he's there in New York, so everything's New York centric, but he's proposing the idea of the Niners trading Brock Purdy to the New York Giants for what he's saying 3 first-round picks, including a pick swap this year where the Niners would get the 3rd pick overall and the Giants would get the 11th pick. And then he says the Niners should go sign Aaron Rodgers and then draft a rookie quarterback. I mean, what do you think of the viability of that? I mean, that would be a unbelievable happening if that happened. If the quarterback that they've been all in on, they somehow in the 11th hour, when it's time to pay the guy, abort the mission and send him to the New York Giants and move from 11 to 3 and get a couple other number ones. I mean, I'll say this, the trade price is pretty intriguing. You're getting 2 number ones and you're moving from 11 to 3 for Brock Purdy, but you still don't have a quarterback unless you believe Mac Jones can be your quarterback.
Right.
How I guess the question is how how risky do the Niners want to be? How tied to their price are they? Are they so tied to their price that they would pawn Brock Purdy at 25 for draft choices? Do you think they should consider it if they're at an impasse financially?
I think they should consider it if it was a better quarterback class, but I don't like this quarterback class at all.
Yeah.
And so if they've said all along, Brock Purdy's our guy. We love Brock Purdy. He's our franchise quarterback. We want to pay him. Jed York, the owner, even said, we're going to take care of Brock Purdy. And then they pivot off of that at the last hour. To me, that would reek of an organization with no plan. That would reek of an organization that is dysfunctional. It would reek of an organization that all of a sudden, after spending $300 million in 2024 coming off that Super Bowl loss, has all of a sudden gotten cheap overnight, which would be very puzzling to me. So if the quarterback class in this draft class was better, then I would think about it if you wanted to fully tear it down and rebuild, because that's what that would signal, right? You tear it down, you rebuild, you get a rookie quarterback who's now under team control for the next 5 years at an affordable price. If you exercise that 5th-year option, and if you take a quarterback who you don't think is ready to play right away, you know that you have Mac Jones on this team for the next 2 years, and he can at least be the bridge quarterback, the holdover plan. Maybe Kyle Shanahan takes the guy who he loved in 2021, who we thought about taking with the number 3 overall pick, and then he turns Mac Jones into a really good player. But if they were to trade away Brock Purdy, I think this organization should be and would be looked at as a joke, because you can't say all of these things and then act a different way and just change your strategy, where you go from spending a lot of money to now all of a sudden saying, we don't want to spend any money. Oh my gosh, let's trade him away. And then you're back in quarterback purgatory. It's just not a good plan, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I know. But it's a matter of how do they feel about paying Brock Purdy the market value, because I think the agent's going to hang with that. I think, market value is between, I would say market value is minimum 55 million. And it's don't even bother offering anything under 55 million. Because he's the latest quarterback, because you just stated all those other quarterbacks who don't have his resume, who make north of 50 million. And I just think 55, 56 million, it's got to be there. It could be, it doesn't have to be 65 or 70 or some new standard, new high, but it has to be in line with the market. You can't be so disconnected that the market, doesn't apply to us. Well, you know what? That's not the way it works. There's also been some indication that maybe from at least people whispering that there are people in league circles that believe the Niners can get 2 first-round picks for Brock Purdy. And, the Niners' plan this entire offseason is to pay Brock Purdy. But if there's interested team, but it sounds like there will be interested teams if he indeed becomes available. I mean, I don't know. This is a tough one. What do you think? You mentioned this is not a good quarterback class. Let's talk about this quarterback class for a second. Is there anybody in this quarterback class that you do like? Because, just because there's not premier guys at the top doesn't, kind of history has told us that, heck, there were 5 premier guys in 2021 and none of them wind up being any good.
Yep.
And then, you look at some other years and there's been, other years where guys have come of age. There's Cam Ward, there's Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. A lot of talk that the Jets are going to take Jackson Dart 7th in the top 10. Jalen Milroe, Chase ran 4.37 yesterday in Tuscaloosa at the Alabama Pro Day. Even though he looked like a circus at the Senior Bowl, there's people that are like, hey man, if the Titans pass on Jalen Milroe, they're going to regret it. And if Milroe gets with a good organization, he's going to be, the next Jalen Hurts. He's going to be the next this, the next that. So then there's Quinn Ewers, there's Will Howard, there's Tyler Shugg, there's, been in college for 20 years, Dylan Gabriel, there's Kyle McCord. I like the guys I like Riley Leonard from Notre Dame, and I like Brady Cook from Missouri, and I kind of like this kid from Canada, El Gersma, based on what I've seen. But I can acknowledge it's not a great quarterback draft for sure. But then there's also, you got Mac Jones, who's whatever. He's not old. He's relatively young. So I don't know. I mean, is there any mindset that you would be like, you know what, this Purdy's agent comes to you and he says, you know what, we're not taking anything. We want to be sitting between 60 and 65. And if you're just morally opposed to that, do you trade him for a couple ones? Take this year to take your lumps with Mac Jones, draft a Riley Leonard in the 4th round, and go that route. I mean, it would be a dramatic shift, but you're back to having, inexpensive quarterbacks and a quarterback on a rookie deal. What do you think?
Yeah, as far as this quarterback class goes, I think this is a good way to judge it, right? The top 3, probably Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, Jackson Dart. I know Tyler Shugg is kind of climbing up draft boards, and the likes of Greg Cosell, they really like him, and I trust Cosell's mind as good as anybody. But for Ward, Sanders, and Dart, where would they go in last year's quarterback class? They're not going ahead of Caleb Williams. They're not going ahead of Jaden Daniels. They're not going ahead of Drake May, and JJ McCarthy might go ahead of those quarterbacks. And so it's pretty telling how thin and weak this quarterback class is. As far as Cam Ward goes, I think he's an absolute gamer. I think he has the clutch gene. I think he has the ability to lead. He can make throws in the pocket, but also extend plays out of structure. That defense for Miami last year was a joke, and he had to lead Miami to so many heroic comebacks, and he was able to do that and make big-time throws in the process. I like his arm. It's live. I like his athleticism. For Shedeur Sanders, he's more of a limited athlete. He's not a runner. He's a little bit thin. He doesn't have a bazooka for an arm, but he does throw with really good touch, timing, accuracy, anticipation. I think that he processes well. I like his ability to throw against pressure. Last year, he completed nearly 55% of his throws against pressure with 12 touchdowns, 5 picks. And so that's quick decision-making, diagnosing what the defense is doing, and then being able to make quick decisions and get the ball in the right place. For Jackson Dart, I think he's a really good athlete. His game reminds me a little bit of Jalen Hurts. He even said he models his game after Jalen Hurts when I was at the NFL Combine. I heard that, and I was like, that's pretty interesting. He has a really live arm. He can run. I think he's underrated with going through his progressions, but I think he needs some time. And so he could be available to the Niners at number 11, and maybe you go Mac Jones and then Jackson Dart. Honestly, where I think the good value is, you sign Mac Jones, if you sign Brock Purdy to a maybe short-term contract while giving him $55 million per year, I think the best value is a Kyle McCord or a Will Howard day 2, day 3. And I think that they can be really good quarterbacks in this league under Kyle Shanahan because they're smart. There's a good body of work. With Riley Leonard, I worry he's a good athlete, but he didn't throw at all for Notre Dame. And I'm just not sure that he can make throws consistently. And so huge risk to trade away Brock Purdy. If you are truly convinced as an organization that he's not worth $55 to $60 million, then yeah, try to trade him away and rebuild that quarterback room. And that would signal a full-on rebuild for San Francisco, but it also just goes against everything that they have said as an organization. So if they did that, I would be absolutely shocked if they went in that direction.
I would too, because they're so wed to Purdy, but they're also so militant about this. We're going to get our price. We're not going to be taken. We're going to be ruthless. This is a new era of negotiation, and the timing could not be worse because, I mean, you literally – your chances of winning this year are not great anyway, but your chances of winning are really bad if Brock Purdy doesn't show up until training camp or preseason or God forbid after that. Okay, one of the areas, Coach Yak has a great tweet out that I want to show you, and it's basically just illustrates how bad the 49ers have been at drafting defensive linemen. The Niners' current regime has drafted the following defensive linemen since taking over in 2017. Robert Beal, Drake Jackson, who might never play again, by the way. We found out that yesterday. Kalia Davis, Javon Kinlaw, Nick Bosa, who basically drafted himself. He was the second pick in the draft. Kentavious Street, Julian Taylor, Solomon Thomas, DJ Jones, Pita Tomapena. I mean, basically they hit on what? Jones and Bosa.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
Out of
Not
1,
good.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Out of the 10 defensive linemen, they are 2 for 10. DJ Jones and Nick Bosa are their hits. The rest of them are mighty swings and misses. Do you trust this regime to build up this line after looking at the defensive linemen that they've drafted since they've been here?
Yeah, it's funny. John Lynch got a little bit snarky the other day, and he's like, yeah, we have this thing called the draft, and we have a lot of picks coming up, 11 of them. And it's so funny with the Niners because on one end, they've been one of the most talented teams in the NFL in recent memory. And a big reason for that, they've hit on a lot of draft picks. You think about the players who left for big-time dollars. That means that other organizations think that they're really talented. They value them. They drafted Aaron Banks in the second round. They drafted Dre Greenlaw. They drafted Talanoa Hufanga. They drafted Fred Warner, Deebo Samuel, Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Brandon Aiyuk. And so a lot of the focal points on this team have all been drafted. And then last year, like Ricky Pearsall has some juice. Renardo Green played well. Dominic Pooney looks to be a player. Isaac Guerrero has some pop. Malik Mustafa, I'm really high on his future. And so they've had such weird drafts since they took over in 2017, where in the first round, they've hit on Nick Bosa and Brandon Aiyuk, and that's about it. For defensive linemen, you just noted, they're 2 of 10, yet they've drafted some of these unbelievable players and studs in the mid to later rounds, but they've missed on all these defensive linemen. You can't miss on defensive linemen in this class. Like, if the Niners were to start a game tomorrow, their starting front would be Nick Bosa, Evan Anderson, Jordan Elliott, and Yetur Gross-Matos. That's a joke. That is a bottom 5 defensive line in the NFL. This defensive tackle class is really deep. There are some really good edge rushers. You need to rebuild the trenches. You need to get better at the point of attack. Right now, this San Francisco 49ers team cannot compete with the teams who are the cream of the crop in the NFC. They can't beat the Eagles along the line of scrimmage. They can't compete with the Lions along the line of scrimmage. They can't compete with the Packers along the line of scrimmage. What have the Vikings done? They have loaded up and got more physical players on the offensive line and the defensive line. Yet, you hear yesterday, the Niners are cool with Colton McKivitz at right tackle. Matt Hennessy and Jake Brendel are going to duke it out for the team starting center role. When are they going to learn their lesson? I'm not sure, but they better learn their lesson quickly as far as player evaluation, what they emphasize and place an importance on, and drafting in the trenches. Because even though some of these offensive line draft picks outside of Dominic Pooney and I guess Aaron Banks, who is really just okay, good player who got great money, they've whiffed on some of these critical areas, and that's part of the reason why they are where they are right now.
No question about it. And when you look at their lack of an ability to hit at the defensive line, it makes this year just absolutely terrifying because they absolutely need to hit in the defensive line at every spot. I'm going to share the screen. I'm going to show you Draft Tech because to me, Draft Tech is one of my favorite websites, and it basically shows on here all the different positions, right? These are the top edge rushers. Basically, they've got the D-line broken down into 4 different areas. Edge rushers, 1 techniques, which would be like nose guards.
Yeah.
3 techniques, which would be like movement interior players. And then 5 techniques, who are basically any big-bodied rusher who's going to play outside. Could be a 3-4 lineman. That's what a 3-4 defensive end is what they call the 5 technique.
Yeah.
So a 5 technique could be a big jumbo defensive tackle. It depends on what your scheme is. But I think the Niners need 1 player at least from all 4 of these different spots. So let's go through, and obviously, you want the best guy in every spot, but you can't get Abdul Carter in every spot. So let's just take a look. This is the edge rush group. Which of the edge rushers intrigues you the most? They've been tied to Oluwafemi Oladejo from UCLA. But I saw some stats this week that showed that he struggles a little bit. But there's a whole Braden Swinson has great numbers from LSU, Josiah Stewart, Sawyer, and Tuamolo from Ohio State. There's Princely, Umamalian from Ole Miss, Landon Jackson, Kyle Kennard, Defensive Player of the Year, Nick Scorton, Ezaraku, lots of good players for sure. What do you think? Is there, we'll go through this and just pick one guy from each category. And obviously, it can't be unrealistic. It can't be, oh, well, I'll just take Abdul Carter. If of these edge rushers, who do you like as a good fit for the Niners?
I know you tweeted about this guy. He's not on that list. I imagine we're going to get to Jaylen Walker, who they might have as a tweener here because he plays linebacker and edge. As far as like the number 11 pick for San Francisco, Mike Green's college production and the way he performed at the Senior Bowl and the quick twitch, the bend, the speed coming off the edge, I'm really intrigued by Mike Green. I mean, he had 17.5 sacks last year for Marshall. Before that, he went to Virginia. And so he's not just a small school guy. Like, he played in the ACC and was an ACC recruit. Shamar Stewart, I'm worried that he's just a good athlete, not a good football player. James Pierce, like Mike Green, has some character concerns. But the player who I like the most probably at number 11 is Mike Green. In the second round, I think Landon Jackson could be a good pick. I think Nick Scorton could be a good selection. Jack Sawyer in the second round. I just love the effort and the hustle from him. And so those are some of the players who kind of have popped to me in the pre-draft process, whether it be round 1 or round 2.
Yeah, I mean, I probably would go further down the list. I kind of like Oladejo.
He's probably a 3rd or 4th rounder at this point.
He's probably a 3rd rounder. Yeah, maybe a 4th rounder. I think you're right. I like David Walker from Central Arkansas. I like Ja Joyner from Minnesota. I think Ja Joyner's a really good player. I've been watching a little bit more of these guys further down the list. Jasheen Davis from Baylor, from Wake, and Steve Linton from Baylor. But I like Oluwafemi Oladejo quite a bit, and David Walker. I do like Landon Jackson. And Donovan Ezaraku, to me, could be amazing. Just when you look at, his production, I mean, kind of like Green, right? He's got the collegiate production, but he also had the workout numbers that were off the charts. So I think Ezaraku, if I had to pick one, I'd probably go with Ezaraku. All right, let's go to the one technique. This is the nose guard list. Kenneth Grant, Tyleek Williams, Deion Walker, Jordan Phillips, C.J. West, Nazir Stackhouse, Caldwell. There's a lot of guys. Jay Toyia. Of the nose guard list, the one techniques, who do you like in this group?
I like Kenneth Grant a lot. I don't think he's a first rounder, but I think if you take him in the second round, I think that he can be a high-level player. Now,
you don't think he's a first rounder?
I don't think he's a first. Not at number 11.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think he's worthy of number 11. Now, I'm also not against trading back to like 15 to 17 and trying to sneak back in to the end of the first round. And if you did that, that's where Kenneth Grant, I think, could make a lot of sense if you went edge rusher or offensive tackle with that earlier first round pick. I don't think Grant is a guy who you take at number 11, but at the end of the first round, in the second round, he's by far my favorite player on this list. I know that he was playing alongside Mason Graham and Josiah Stewart. That Michigan defensive front was loaded, but I think that his game translates to the next level.
Yeah, I love Kenneth Grant. I think he's quite a bit better than Mozzie Smith. I think he's quite a bit better than Big Jordan Davis, but in a lot of ways, he comes in the same packaging. If John Lynch called Howie Roseman and said, "I want Jordan Davis," what round pick would the Eagles ask for in return? Because I've heard in a couple spots that Howie's going to trade Jordan Davis on draft weekend, possibly for a day 2 pick.
Yeah, I would say 4th rounder. Because I don't think he's a 3-down player. I think he's a 2-down player who can play 3 downs at some points. He's gotten in better shape over the years, but there hasn't been that consistent production. This is a big year for him going into year 4. Eagles are going to have to make a decision as to whether or not to exercise that 5th-year option. But with this wide 9, I don't think he's a good scheme fit for San Francisco.
Yeah, I mean, he would definitely absorb blocks, but I don't know if he can rush the passer. Of this group, I kind of like Jordan Phillips and C.J. West, after the first round. Kenneth Grant, I love, but if you could get Phillips or West, I think those would be nice players. How about the 3 technique group? And this is Mason Graham, Walter Nolan, Derek Harmon, Darius Alexander, Josh Farmer, Ty Robinson. There's a lot of good players here. J.J. Pegues. I like some of these guys down the list. Riley Mills, Eric Gregory, Simeon Barrow, Keontae Hamilton from Rutgers. This is a good list. Who's your guy on the 3 technique list?
And these are scheme fits for the Niners, by the way. If Mason Graham falls to the Niners, I think he has the potential to be one of the top players in this draft class. I know that he weighed in 25 pounds lighter than what Michigan listed him as, but I think he's going to be a really good player. If the Niners trade back, Walter Nolan has that quick twitch, explosion, pass rush ability to stop the run, where I think that he could be violent along the interior. Derek Harmon, 313 pounds. He ran a sub-5 40-yard dash. I think that he's really good. Let's see. Keep going down. I like who do I like? Riley Mills, I think 3rd, 4th round out of Notre Dame. He can play defensive tackle and a little bit of defensive end. I think Chris Kosar could do some good things with him. He has a ton of experience and production at the college level, and Notre Dame has played in a bunch of big games against some really good competition. And so he's a good player too. But this list specifically here with this prototype at defensive tackle, scheme fit, and it's very deep where you can get really good players rounds 1 through 4.
Yeah, I like guys like right here in the 3rd round, Josh Farmer, Ty Robinson, Shamar Turner, Darius Alexander, 2nd, 3rd round. I think that's the sweet spot for the 3 techniques. So then here's the 5 techniques. These are guys who can really rush the passer in a number of different ways. Now, I would grab one of these guys as well. I love Aeneas Peebles from Vatex, 6 feet.
You like TJ Sanders too, right?
I do like TJ Sanders, very athletic player. I like Tonka Hemingway quite a bit. One of my favorite players is Savion Jones from LSU. I thought he looked so amazing in the Senior Bowl. He played defensive end for LSU at 290, but he played inside at the Senior Bowl, and he was just his quickness off the ball. You could just see it in the game. I mean, it was just way too much for the interior all-star offensive lineman to handle. So to me, Savion Jones, Tonka Hemingway, Aeneas Peebles, if I could get one of those 3 guys, I like Davin Vann too from NC State, Elijah Roberts. But to me, you get one of each of these groups. You get one edge rusher, give me one nose guard, give me 1 3 technique, give me one of these pass rushers, 5 technique. You get one of every group of these guys. I think you'd be all right.
Yeah,
Niners like anybody in this list?
Peebles. Lighter, but he's explosive and quick.
Yeah, very good, very quick, very quick. Okay, couple. Appreciate that. We just wanted to walk through that for a second.
All right, can we talk about
yeah,
I saw you tweet about Jaylen Walker too.
Yeah, let's talk about Jaylen Walker.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
so intriguing to me at number 11 because
what do you think?
You can use him as an off-ball linebacker and as an edge rusher, and I think he does too at a really high level. So can he help replace Dre Greenlaw and give you pass rushing production? And I'd also love to see how Robert Saleh can use him in a versatility type of role where he's doing both, because I think he's athletic enough to do both, skilled enough, and he's shown that he can do both.
You know, you guys in Philly have so many of the Georgia guys.
Yep.
And yet I watch those guys. Who was the linebacker that went down with the injury late in the year?
Nakobe Dean.
Nakobe Dean.
Yeah.
He's this guy's better. Yeah, but this guy's better than that guy.
Yeah,
I think this guy could play Nakobe Dean's position better than Nakobe Dean. He's a far better athlete.
Yeah.
I think this guy's better than Nolan Smith, who's had great speed coming off the edge. And Nolan Smith's one of Jaylen Walker's, mentors or whatever.
Yeah.
But I want you to watch this. I'm going to share the screen. This is PFF's breakdown. Now, this guy's pretty interesting, but he doesn't love Jaylen Walker. And I think he's got this profile down wrong. So listen to his breakdown. It's pretty interesting, though. This guy,
Trevor Sikkema.
He makes some good points. Have you had him on the show before?
Yeah, I did have him on the show last year. Yeah.
Here he is breaking down Jaylen Walker. And basically what he's going to tell you is he doesn't think he's a fit at either spot.
Jaylen Walker, I'm still nervous about him as a player. 30th right now on the big board. Now he has an average draft position 7 spots higher, so his average draft position is 23. That sort of speaks to, I think a lot of people outside of us are higher on Jaylen Walker. And I really do. I like him as a player, top 30. I think if you wanted to take him back into the first round, early part of the second round, hearing how he talks about the game of football, how he evaluates his own game, how he evaluates the guys that he's going up against, having that coach's background to him. I love all of that stuff. It's hard for me to give him this oh yeah, let's put him in the top 20. Let's put him in the top 15. Some people talk about him in the top 10, like for the Carolina Panthers at number 8, because he's not built like an edge rusher at all whatsoever. Can be a very valuable player, but I just think about, I don't love the linebacker instincts that he showcased this past year. So I don't love sort of his feel for spacing and coverage, specifically if you got him in off-ball linebacker roles, and he's just not built like an edge rusher. So given a lot of the intangibles, how highly it sounds like a lot of the people at the Georgia program sort of speak of him, I would definitely take a chance on him. I think he's going to be a good football player, and I like him. Just, I'm not there with that top 20, top 15. So that's where I am with Jaylen Walker.
He makes some really good points, and I like this guy. He's a good analyst.
Brugler has him number 3 on his big board. It hasn't been updated in a while, but number 3 on his big board behind Travis Hunter and Abdul Carter.
I think this is one of the best players that I've seen in a while. I mean, first of all, okay, let's talk about him, what he is. 6'1", 243. So he's not a defensive end. I mean, he is a stacked linebacker in today's NFL.
Yep.
He's got 10.5 inch hand or 10.25 inch hands. He won the Butkus. He's versatile. He's athletic. He's productive. What I really like about him, he's the son of a football coach. His dad, Curtis, was an All-American at Division II Catawba. His brother plays cornerback at Georgia State. He comes from a football family. He's the Dogs' team captain. He led them in sacks the last 2 years. 3rd team All-American, AP All-American this year. He played on the special teams on punt coverage unit. The leadership that you hear I've got buddies who have gone out to Athens and looked at their film and scouted him and have talked to him, and they say, man, his leadership is really what's famous at Georgia. He's got great burst. He's super tough. He was a 5-star high school recruit, played on the national championship squad as a freshman, 3 sacks this year against Kelvin Banks from Texas, dominated Texas in that SEC tilt between Texas and Georgia the first time. Unbelievable first step, rare bend, rare flexibility, obviously scheme versatile, 94th percentile speed-wise. He runs in the 4.5s, got an unbelievable motor. He is raw in pass coverage. But, Chase, what I see is just a Pro Bowl linebacker. He's got a shoulder injury that has to be investigated. But I just see, elite pass rush traits, but just a fluid athlete who's physical and tough. And I know Nolan Smith's an edge, but this guy's not an edge. This guy's could be an edge. He's that great. But I think at the pro level, he's a stack backer. And I see Patrick Willis. I see a Hall of Fame, incredible athlete, incredible person, incredible football player. Some guys don't live for it. This guy lives for it. This guy's all about it. And when you're the best athlete and you produce and you're all about football, turn off the projector, draft that guy, turn in the card. I think he's a special player. He's not a defensive end. So if you draft him to be a defensive end, I do get it. It's a little bit of a projection in the NFL to project him to a stack backer. But I think he's a Pro Bowl stack backer next to Fred Warner and maybe the best player on the Niner defense day one. I'd draft him at 11. I wouldn't have any problems drafting him at 11. I'd rather trade back a couple spots if I could. Where are you on Jaylen Walker? And you've seen all these Georgia guys. This guy is, I think, better than all those guys. I think you're muted. How come I don't hear you? Are you muted? Does the audience hear Chase? Because I don't hear Chase.
Oh, here we go.
Oh, there we go.
You pretty much, you broke it down very well. Like, I'm just so intrigued by the athleticism, the football background, the want to, the character, the leadership, the versatility. And for instance, like, I think that you can use him on 3rd down as a pass rusher. And I'm so intrigued by being able to use him in multiple spots. Like Nolan Smith was 238 pounds at the NFL Combine, and he ran a sub 4.4. And so Walker is a little bit heavier at 243, 245, but has some of that twitch, bend, and speed off the edge. But the instincts at that linebacker spot, we just saw how much the Niners missed that, not having Dre Greenlaw last year. And then he played a half against the Rams, and you saw how beneficial it is to have a player like that. He's now in Denver. And so if you can get a replacement and the Niners might extend Fred Warner, you might shore up your linebacking group. And this Niners defense is really dependent on good linebacker play, but you also need a good pass rusher. And so on third down passing situations, use him there. If he's beating Kelvin Banks, and if he has some of that sack production and ability, I'd like to see the Niners use him as kind of that chess piece because, you know, it's not quite like the NBA that's become positionless, but the NFL in a way, some positions have become positionless in a way where you just use players to the best of their abilities. Love how the Eagles did that with Cooper DeJean. Like how the Chiefs do it with Trent McDuffie. And while Nolan Smith didn't have a good rookie year, he had 6.5 sacks in year 2, then 4 more in the playoffs because that twitch, speed, and pass rush ability, that's really what can take you to the next level. I think Walker just has so many great skills and football instincts that you can't always teach that I would like him at number 11. I'm falling in love with him.
You're aboard. I mean, Howie Roseman, you know, I mean, I look for him to somehow swoop in. I could, anytime there's a great Georgia player, I'm expecting Howie to swoop in. Yeah. What's your thoughts on Aiyuk? You're the one who asked John Lynch the question that I think has been the pivotal moment of this offseason. I mean, it's really kind of crazy.
Yeah.
But you gave him an opportunity to be like, yeah, Brandon Aiyuk ain't going anywhere, man. And he could have put the whole thing to bed and there would be no speculation. And instead he poured gas on the fire and he gave all kinds of, added all kinds of credence to the idea that Aiyuk's going to be dealt.
Yeah.
Kawakami came out in his piece in the San Francisco Standard in the last week and said Aiyuk could be dealt at any moment. The people of Cleveland think he's going there. Greg Bedard thinks he's going to New England. There's people in Carolina that think he's going there. I think he's going just because I think the one factor, I think the Niners are willing to, they want that $110 million so bad of Jed's money that I think they're going to be willing to take, some day 3 package of picks. I've seen a lot of different trade him for a third, trade him for this guy, trade him for that guy. To me, it's interesting. I mean, New England has 3 picks in the 7th round. The Browns have 4 picks in the 6th round. I think that's the reservoir of picks that the Niners are shopping from for Aiyuk. And I think he goes before April 1st to one of those 2 teams for multiple picks on day 3. That's my prediction.
Yeah.
Where are you on Aiyuk? Because you were standing right there. You asked the question. You looked Lynch in the eyes when he gave you the answer. So you probably have a better feel for where they're at with this than maybe I do even. What's your takeaway on Aiyuk and how it's going to end itself?
The crazy thing, too, with that answer from Lynch, when I asked him that question, he revealed everything that the Niners were about to do. He said, we need to get younger and we need to shed some salary. That's everything that the 49ers have done so far in free agency. And right after that, Grant asked him about trading away Deebo Samuel. And he said, we're still not in the business of getting rid of good football players, but we're going to honor that trade request. That was on Wednesday that Lynch addressed the media. Deebo Samuel was gone on Saturday. And so you think about everything that the Niners have done, right? If they want to get younger, if they want to shed some salary, if John Lynch had every opportunity to say, no, we're not trading Brandon Aiyuk, and he didn't, that tells me they're taking calls. Because the question I asked him, I said, there's a report here in Indianapolis that multiple teams are interested in trading Brandon Aiyuk. Are you interested in trading Brandon Aiyuk, and what's his health status? And he didn't answer the health status part until later, but he didn't shoot it down at all. And so there's that April 1st roster bonus that is due. It makes absolutely no sense if the Niners were to trade him after April 1st, because April 1st triggers them having to give him a lot of money. What is it, $14 to $16 million that he would be due automatically on April 1?
I think it might be 22 million.
Is it? Yeah, something along those lines, right? It's a lot of money. And so here we are recording this live show March 21st. I think a decision has to be made prior to April 1st. And the Niners have to learn their lesson from what they didn't do last year. They had to know what they were going to do at wide receiver before the NFL draft, and they messed that up. They could have also signed Aiyuk to $25 million per year. That's what Devontae Smith got paid by the Eagles. Then Jaylen Waddle got 27. And then other wide receivers got 30 and 33 and 34. And then the market got all messed up for Aiyuk. So make the decision before April 1st. I think there are a couple of teams that really come to mind. It's the Cleveland Browns, because especially if they take Cam Ward or Shadur Sanders with their pick, they need wide receiver talent. You can bring Aiyuk in alongside Jerry Jeudy. In that Kevin Stefanski offense, you have to imagine they're going to find success on the ground, and they're going to have a pretty solid defense because they always do. They need another wide receiver. The New England Patriots still don't have a wideout. Kendrick Bourne is their number one. They signed Matt Collins. They have Keyshawn Butte. They are not good enough at wide receiver, and they still have a lot of money to pay. And last year, they showed a lot of interest in Aiyuk. They offered him $34 million per year. And Aiyuk said, I'm not going to New England. Well, now he signed that deal, and it's not like he has a no-trade clause. He doesn't. He can be traded. And the Patriots showed interest in him previously. They haven't been able to land a T. Higgins because he signed with Cincinnati. They couldn't land DK Metcalf. He got traded to Pittsburgh. And now they're left with Drake May going into year 2. They want to capitalize and maximize him being on that rookie contract. That's the formula for teams who draft quarterbacks. And they can't expect Drake May to make it work with Kendrick Bourne, Matt Collins, Keyshawn Butte. They could make the trade for Brandon Aiyuk. And for the Niners, they could get out of that Aiyuk contract, and that fits everything that John Lynch said. Shedding salary, getting younger, and never turning down an Aiyuk trade at the time.
Couple last thoughts before we jet for the door. What percentage chance would you put it that the Niners trade Brandon Aiyuk?
I think it's like 70%.
Okay. I agree. I think it even, yeah. I think I'm convinced. I mean, I would say I'm convinced more like 80, 85%, but I'll go with 70.
I think they've really regretted it so far with how he handled it too. There was those leaks that there are still people in the organization that disagree with his approach last year. And then he got hurt. His body language sucked. His play sucked. He was out of shape. Then he had that weird practice scuffle with Kyle Shanahan where he wore the wrong shorts. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously, what percentage chance would you say the 49ers wind up trading Brock Purdy?
I would say like 10%. I think they get a deal done with Brock Purdy. They know that they need a quarterback, and everything that they've said leads me to believe that they think he's that guy.
Is there a creative addition, either signing, draft, or trade, that you think is out there for the Niners to make? It hasn't necessarily been talked about a lot, but you think it's a beneath the radar kind of move. And I bring this up because I've seen in the last 48 hours, I've seen trade rumors around Garrett Wilson. I've seen trade rumors around Trayvon Walker in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
And I kind of think both those guys would be good for the 49ers. I think Garrett Wilson is exactly the receiver the Niners need. And I think Trayvon Walker could really, in this situation, next to Bosa on Chris Kasarek's line in this wide 9, I think he could have a career renaissance that even is better than what Laken Tomlinson enjoyed when the Niners traded for him as a bust of a first-round pick. And then I think they gave a 5th or something like that to Detroit. Laken had a couple really good years here. I think Trayvon Walker could really be special with the Niners. But is there a player that you see either, as I said, draft, trade, free agent, or I guess those are the 3 areas that you would like to see the Niners potentially try to go after?
A couple of things. If they traded away Brandon Aiyuk, that could open up the door for them to take Garrett Wilson, because this wide receiver class is not good at all. It's very thin, which is very rare because nowadays in the NFL draft, usually there's a lot of wide receiver talent. So if they trade Aiyuk away, look out for a Garrett Wilson trade, because they would have to sign him to a contract extension. And he's that type of man beater that Aiyuk was when he was a second-team All-Pro in 2023. Robert Saleh, obviously very familiar with him as well. For Trayvon Walker, I didn't like the pick to take him ahead of Aiden Hutchinson a few years ago. And I think that Hutchinson is still the better player, but Trayvon Walker has had 10 and 10.5 sacks the last 2 years, and he can rush the passer as a stand-up edge rusher with his hand in the dirt. He can defend the run. He's only 24 years old. I think he's only scratching the surface of what he can become, and I think that he would be a monster addition because I think his best football is ahead of him, and the trade package and the contract extension would not be as rich as it would have been for a Myles Garrett or it is right now for a Trey Hendrickson or a Micah Parsons. So that would be interesting. The Stanford wide receiver, Alec Ayumanor, I think is how you say his name.
Ayumanor, I believe.
Yeah, he is a dog, and he has really good size. The Niners showed a lot of interest in him, and he ran very well at the combine. Anytime I watched him at Stanford, he made ridiculous contested catches. Underrated athlete, went up and got it, really good red zone threat. But with that speed, I think that he can be more than that. It wouldn't surprise me if the Niners took him in the second round. It wouldn't surprise me if the Niners traded back in the first round to try to move up in the second or move up into the back end of the first. And then I think a lot of this money that's being not used right now and saved could be given to Purdy, Kittle, and Warner for contract extensions. So those are some moves that come to mind that the Niners could pull off.
I think I got a video idea for you, Chase, for later today. My good friend Matt Bowen from ESPN, talked a little bit about in an article about how the Niners, in his opinion, should try to make a trade with the Eagles for Bryce Huff, who did have 10 sacks in 2023 for the Jets under Robert Saleh. The Eagles probably regret signing Huff. They gave him 3 years, $51.1 million last offseason. He managed 2.5 sacks. He missed 5 weeks with a torn ligament in the wrist. He got activated in late December, but was inactive for Super Bowl 59. Saleh spent 3 years working with Huff. He was really good for Robert Saleh. What would it take? The Niners badly need as much help as they can possibly find anywhere and everywhere on the defensive line. They can't look away from anybody. The Eagles are probably looking to get off of Huff. What's the price tag if the Niners come calling on Bryce Huff?
I think the Eagles just want to get out of that contract. I think that you can have him for a 5th-round pick because you're going to have to pay him a little bit of coin. And Vic Fangio didn't like him right from the jump. I mean, he played him deep into the preseason, and he wasn't a part of the first-team defense in training camp. He used him as a stand-up edge rusher. That's not what he's comfortable doing. He's more comfortable in that three-point stance where he can put his hand in the dirt and allows him to get that fast get off. Pretty cool developmental story for the Jets. I mean, he was a UDFA out of Memphis. And then his final year in 2023, he had 10 sacks and more than 40 pressures while playing around 50% of the snaps. And so I think Robert Saleh really likes him. And I think that that's great value. Now, again, you have to pay him, but you have some money right now. You have available cap space where if you want to get better at edge, you bring in a player who Robert Saleh really likes. He's not great against the run. That could cause hesitations for San Francisco. But that's a player who I think Saleh could get back on track and get his confidence back.
Yeah, no, I think Bryce Huff, change of scenery might be exactly what the doctor ordered. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Chase, what do you got cooking the rest of the day? Oh, let's hit our 2 supers here as well. We got this one from Daza. I keep hearing people comparing Brock to recently paid quarterbacks just because they overpaid for mediocre quarterbacks. Why should the Niners make the same mistake? It's called the market.
It's the going rate.
Market. Yeah, it's the going rate. Go into your job and tell them that, that you want to make as much as the other people. And that's going to sound probably like a normal request. But when you put it out there with Purdy, it's like, why should they pay him? Because other guys are paying their quarterback too much. What's the market? It's the market. It's the precedent that's been set. Jerry Martinez, his 2 first-round picks for Purdy would only get them quarterback hell. If Purdy gets traded, I'm going with him to whatever team he's going to. That's a good one. Yes, Jerry, don't go. Stay with us. Chase, what do you got cooking the rest of the day over at Chat Sports?
Yeah, just going to continue to push out some great Niners content. Right before I hopped on here with you, talked about that Mike Garafolo report on Brock Purdy. So check that video out, and then we'll have great content to come throughout the weekend. And the NFL draft's going to be here in a little more than a month. So a lot of draft content to come over the next few weeks as the NFL calendar, it never dies down, and it doesn't sleep outside of like a little bit of June and July. But that's it at this point.
Cheeseball. Larry knows deep down inside Brock is not him, too. Brock is him, Cheeseball. He is him. No, I don't know. Who knows? I think he's the best they got, and I think it's time to pay him and roll the dice and build this thing up. And the question is, do you think John Lynch is pressing? You heard that line, and you know Lynch a little bit. Do you think he's pressing, Chase? Because he was like, hey, there's this thing called the draft, and it was kind of snarky. But at the same time, it's like he's got a bunch of people telling him, you're cooked, you're done, you're done, you're done. And this is his way of saying, hey, man, we're not done. We have an entire draft. We got an arsenal of picks. We could have as many as 15. We got a game plan. We're going to execute it. It's still going to be an incredibly young roster if they go this route. But I won't say they're done because their schedule is so favorable. And they do have a bunch of picks, and it is a deep draft. I would give them like a 10% chance of being in the deep Super Bowl run in the NFC this year, but only 10% because they're going to have 25 rookies on the team.
Yeah, it's going to be a super young team. They need to hit on the next two drafts. I think the future of the Niners really hinges on that. And I think Lynch feels some pressure from Jed York. I think he feels some pressure coming off a 6-11 season. Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh, this coaching staff, they're going to have to earn their high salaries because they're really going to have to coach well and develop players. And I think Lynch and Shanahan are feeling that a little bit, but they're also really good competitors. And I think that they're eager and they're ready for a challenge like this. But if they don't get it right, they could be jobless.
Thanks to Pick and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. Thanks to Claw Daddy Arcades. He's a great follow on Instagram at Claw_Daddy_Arcades. And thanks to LearnKeys Upskill Academy for sponsoring our show as well. There are links in the description for all of our sponsors. Hit like and subscribe on your way out the door. Thanks to Chase. Thanks to all of you. Have a great Friday. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of.